I know it feels like you're falling behind. Like everyone else is moving forward and you're the only one standing still. Like there's some invisible race happening and you missed the starting gun, and now no matter how hard you try, you can't catch up. You look around and see people progressing, changing, building the lives they want, and you're here, in the same place you've been for months, maybe years, wondering what you're doing wrong. I'm not going to tell you that you're exactly where you're supposed to be. I'm not going to say that everything happens for a reason, or that your time is coming. Because I know those words have lost their meaning. I know you've heard them before and they didn't help. They just made you feel more alone in this strange, suspended state where nothing seems to move. What I want to talk about instead is what's actually happening in this phase. Not what it looks like from the outside, not what other people see, but what's occurring inside you while everything appears to be standing still. You're not behind. You're stabilizing. And I know that word doesn't carry the weight you want it to. Stabilizing sounds passive. It sounds like an excuse. It sounds like something people say when they don't want to admit that maybe you're just stuck and nothing's going to change. But stabilizing is different from being stuck. Being stuck means you're trapped, unable to move even if you wanted to. Stabilizing means your system is finding solid ground after a period of upheaval. It means you're settling into something new, even if that something new doesn't look dramatic from the outside. Think about a building during construction. There are phases where you can see progress every single day. Walls going up. Floors being added. The structure rising visibly into the sky. And then there are phases where nothing seems to happen. Where the crew is there every day, working, but to an outsider, it looks the same. Week after week, no visible change. But during those invisible phases, they're doing foundation work. They're reinforcing the structure. They're making sure that what's already been built can support what comes next. And that work is critical. Without it, everything built on top would eventually collapse. You're in a foundation phase right now. And foundation phases don't look impressive. They don't photograph well. They don't give you something to show people when they ask how things are going. But they're essential. Your system has been through something. Maybe it was change you chose. Maybe it was change that happened to you. Maybe it was loss, or growth, or just the slow accumulation of years of pushing forward without rest. Whatever it was, it shook your foundation. And now your system is doing what systems do when they've been shaken. It's stabilizing. It's finding its footing again. And while it does that, nothing external can move. Because moving forward on unstable ground is dangerous. Your system knows that, even if your conscious mind doesn't. So it keeps you here, in this frustrating pause, not as punishment, but as protection. You want to move. You want to build. You want to see progress. But your system is saying, not yet. First, we stabilize. First, we make sure the ground is solid. And that feels like falling behind. Because everyone else seems to be building. Everyone else seems to be moving. And you're here, doing invisible work that no one sees and you can't even prove is happening. But the work is happening. Every day you wake up and keep going, even though nothing looks different, you're stabilizing. Every day you choose not to force movement, not to panic into action, not to scramble for proof that you're still making progress, you're stabilizing. Every day you sit with the discomfort of not knowing when this phase will end, you're stabilizing. And I know that doesn't feel like enough. Because stabilizing doesn't come with milestones. It doesn't come with visible markers of progress. It doesn't give you anything to point to and say, see, I'm getting somewhere. It just asks you to be here. To keep breathing. To keep existing in the in-between without falling apart. And maybe you feel like you are falling apart. Maybe some days it takes everything you have just to get through. Maybe you're exhausted from pretending you're okay when really you're just trying to survive this strange, quiet phase where nothing makes sense. But the fact that you're still here means you're not falling apart. You're holding. You're enduring. You're doing the hard, invisible work of staying present in a phase that offers no rewards, no validation, no proof that any of this matters. That's stabilization. And it's not linear. It's not something you can measure or track. Some days you'll feel solid, grounded, like maybe you're finally getting somewhere. And then the next day you'll feel like you've lost all that ground, like you're back at the beginning, like nothing you did mattered. But that's how stabilization works. It's not a straight line. It's a slow oscillation, swinging back and forth, gradually finding center. And during that oscillation, it feels like you're not making progress. It feels like you're just spinning in place. But you're not spinning. You're settling. Your mind desperately wants this to be over. It wants to skip ahead to the part where you're stable and things are moving again. It wants to bypass the discomfort of not knowing, the frustration of feeling like you're wasting time, the fear that maybe this phase will last forever. And so it starts looking for exits. It starts scanning for signs that you're almost done, that the waiting is almost over, that soon, very soon, things will shift. And when those signs don't come, when day after day looks the same, your mind starts to panic. It starts to believe that something's wrong. That you're doing this wrong. That everyone else knows some secret about how to move forward that you missed. But there is no secret. There's just the uncomfortable truth that some phases take time. And no amount of effort, no amount of wanting it to be over, no amount of hating where you are will make it go faster. In fact, the more you fight it, the longer it takes. Because fighting the stabilization process adds tension to a system that's trying to settle. It's like trying to let muddy water clear while constantly stirring it. The water wants to settle. The sediment wants to sink. But if you keep agitating it, it stays cloudy. Your system wants to stabilize. It's trying to find solid ground. But every time you panic about how long it's taking, every time you compare yourself to people who seem to be moving faster, every time you hate yourself for still being here, you agitate the system. And it has to start the settling process over again. So one of the hardest parts of stabilizing is learning to stop fighting it. Learning to let yourself be in this phase without resenting it. Learning to exist in the stillness without needing it to mean something's wrong with you. You're not behind. You're exactly where you need to be for the stabilization to happen. And I know that's hard to accept. Because it feels like you should be further along by now. It feels like you've been doing the work, showing up, trying, and you should have something to show for it. But stabilization doesn't produce external results. It produces internal solidity. And internal solidity is invisible until it's tested. You won't know you've stabilized until you face something that would have knocked you over before, and instead, you stay standing. You won't know the work mattered until you look back and realize that the chaos that used to destabilize you doesn't anymore. But right now, in the middle of it, you can't see that. You can only see that nothing's moving. That you're still here. That everyone else seems to be getting somewhere and you're not. But they're not ahead of you. They're just in a different phase. And their phase isn't better than yours. It's just different. Some people are in building phases. Some people are in stabilizing phases. Some people are in breaking down phases. And none of these phases are wrong. They're all necessary. They all serve a purpose. Your purpose right now is to stabilize. Not to build. Not to grow. Not to expand or achieve or prove anything. Just to stabilize. And that might sound like settling for less. Like giving up on progress. Like accepting that you'll never move forward. But it's not. Stabilizing is what allows you to move forward sustainably. It's what prevents you from building something that collapses the moment it's tested. It's what gives you the foundation to support everything that comes next. Without stabilization, you'd be building on shaky ground. And maybe you could build fast. Maybe you could make visible progress. But it wouldn't last. Because the foundation wasn't solid. So your system is doing you a favor by holding you here. By refusing to let you move forward until the ground is solid. By making you stabilize even when every part of you wants to skip this part and get to the good stuff. And I know it doesn't feel like a favor. It feels like a punishment. It feels like you're being held back while everyone else gets to move forward. But you're not being held back. You're being held steady. There's a difference. Being held back means something is preventing you from getting where you want to go. Being held steady means something is keeping you from collapsing while you find your footing. And right now, you need to be held steady. You need the stillness. You need the pause. Even though you hate it. Because without it, you'd keep pushing forward on unstable ground, and eventually, you'd fall. And the fall would be harder than this waiting. The fall would set you back further than this pause ever could. So let yourself stabilize. Let yourself be in this phase without making it mean you're failing. You're not failing. You're doing exactly what needs to happen right now. You're letting your system find solid ground. You're letting the chaos settle. You're letting yourself become steady enough to handle what comes next. And what comes next will come. Not because you forced it. Not because you earned it. But because stabilization naturally leads to movement. Once the ground is solid, building can begin again. But you can't rush it. You can't make the ground solid by wanting it to be. You can only let the process happen. And the process takes as long as it takes. So stop measuring yourself against people who are in different phases. Stop hating yourself for not being further along. Stop believing that the stillness means you're doing something wrong. You're not behind. You're stabilizing. And stabilizing is not falling behind. It's preparing to move forward in a way that lasts. So be here. Be still. Be patient with yourself even when patience feels impossible. Because this phase is doing something. Even when it looks like nothing. Even when it feels like nothing. It's giving you solid ground. And solid ground is what you'll build everything else on. So let it happen. Let yourself stabilize. Without guilt. Without shame. Without the belief that you should be somewhere else by now. You're exactly where you need to be. Not behind. Not stuck. Just stabilizing. And that's enough.